Welcome to Crosstalk. Today we shift our focus to something that is very important for believers. We shift our focus to the DRC, Congo. You might ask yourself, why have a discussion around the Congo? Yet we have a lot of issues in our own country that needs a discussion. Let me tell you that out of every, let's say 1 in 5 believers, 1 is persecuted for their faith in Christ. Recently, in the month of February, we saw 70 Christians put in a church and beheaded in Congo. They were all reported dead, children, women, and men. Today, I have a privilege to host a bishop who has not run away from the DRC Congo. This is a man who has planted churches in Congo. He has pastors, bishops, members of his church right in the eastern part of DRC where the conflict is ongoing. Congo is a country with a population of over 105 million people. And yet, the entire world is focusing on the geopolitical situation in Congo, but not on the status of faith in the DRC. That's my discussion tonight. So join me as I'm joined by Bishop William Ouma Odwor. Bishop is a man that has come back home to share the experience of how it is in the DRC. Welcome, Bishop.
Thank you.
It's a sad situation if you look at what is happening in Congo. Mm-hmm. But before we get there, one might ask, who is Dr. William?
Yeah, my name is Dr. William Ouma. I'm the founder of Harvestland Ministries International. We have our main base in Kisumu, and we have churches all over Kenya, about 60 plus. And we also have work in other 9 countries, including DRC, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, Pakistan, and South Sudan. And the US, of course. And so we work in these places, and we preach the gospel. Our main goal is reconciling communities, reconciling and transforming communities through the word of God by faith work, which is preaching the gospel, evangelism, discipling these people, leadership training, and also development aspect, which involves compassion work and other development activities. Yes.
So quite a lot of work that you do.
Yes.
And the last 2 episodes of this show have been looking at evangelism and missions,
yes,
and mostly the Great Commission.
Yes.
And it looks like you are a man that is practically living out the Great Commission. How is it painting a picture of what is happening in DRC?
All these nations that I've talked to you about, I've had different experiences. Preaching in Kenya is different with preaching in the DRC, because more of the things that we do here in Kenya, as much as there is those people who do not want to listen to the gospel, but mostly they will just walk away. In DRC, number 1, you are looking at your security before you even think of sharing the gospel. That is one of the things. Because there is a lot of militia and rebels. The political situation is not very good. And so if you have to do anything in there, it has to cost you the call of God. And you really need to know that God has sent you there to be able to do it.
Okay.
Yes.
If you look at Open Door, a global institution that ranks nations in terms of the level of persecution of Christians across the world, they rank Congo as number 35. Ideally top 50 most dangerous countries, if you may speak so, in terms of persecution of Christians. Is that the real picture on the ground?
Yeah, and more so now. Because like now, what we are talking about, looking at the situation that is going on now. I've been in Congo in two situations. When the government of Congo was in place, especially in the eastern Congo where we work mostly. Of course, we have a church in Kinshasa, and but mostly in Goma and Bukavu and around those areas. That one would be different again, but I've also been around in Goma when Goma was also under the rebels' rule before. And that one also changes the whole, situation. So you find when the rebels are there, things are not very, very good. You would find maybe the government would be willing, because you are coming in, maybe to support in the area of evangelism, but at the same time also doing development activities. I've done medical things there. I'm a medic too. And plus evangelism, that is just like an interest door to get in there. And so, but when you are dealing with rebels, like right now, they are actually looking for Christian leaders. Yes, maybe we might be talking about that later. Yeah.
Okay, because when we talk about DRC and the situation, and maybe around this conversation and around this table, when you look at DRC, the question then is, why must we discuss DRC from a Christian point of view?
I believe, for me, the Lord says, go ye into the world. And I think DRC is part of those areas that the Lord is commissioning us to go to. So it doesn't have to be a place where you feel you have peace. It is every place that the Lord sends you. So DRC, for me, is on top of all this. Yes.
Okay. 70 Christians killed in DRC in the month of February. As someone who has churches in DRC, and maybe you can speak to the number of church plants you've done in DRC, when you get to read news such as that, what comes into your mind? Yet you have active members within a place where they are telling you 70 of them are killed in a church.
Of course, it scares you, but again, you have to go back to the foundation of why are you there. In DRC, we have 20 churches right now that we are planted in various places. Key of these churches are in Goma and Bukavu. Goma is the largest city in that area. Now, people killed that way, it's not as such, it is something that you expect. Because that is the situation that is there, even when you are ministering. You know anything can happen because it is volatile. So
is this a faith thing or a geopolitical situation?
I think it's a geopolitical situation. But again, the answers may not be geopolitical. Faith will have a very good and a big step in the whole situation.
Then why is the world silent? Why is the global church silent?
That is my question too.
So where do we get the answers from?
I think we just have to go back and do what the Lord told us to do. Yeah, we need to take a step of faith and answer. And again, I'm not necessarily expecting everybody to do it, but I'm trusting that there are few that will hear the call of God and will be impressed by the Spirit of God to go ahead and answer this call.
How does the numbers look like? Because 70 is what has been reported, but if you look at the number of churches that have been destroyed, pastors and men of God that are suffering even as we speak. How is the situation like now that you have an advantage point of receiving news from them?
So far, okay, you're talking of 70 that were killed.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, right now we are at 4,000. We passed 70. We are at 4,000 now, and again past 4,000 because that was like last week. This morning, as I was coming to this particular, program, and this is not excluding Christians. Even that is why, as I'm talking right now, some of, like, there is a few, like last month, when this whole thing began, I was just calling my, I have a bishop now taking care of our work in DRC. And so I was just calling him to find out what was going on because I knew there was all those tensions and everything. And then that morning, they were locked up in the church. So what I could hear from far on my phone was, the loud sounds of bombing. And I was like, what is happening? And he was talking at a low tone. He's saying, we are gathered here in church, most of us, and everybody is on the floor because there is bombing and, the rebels have come into the city and they have taken over and everybody, people are being killed anyhowly. And so with the search, I was like, so how many have been killed? He says, now beginning with where we are, this is now the main city. You can tell from the forest where they came from and the cities along that route. So that can give you an idea of how many people have been killed to get to us here.
Wow.
So that is it.
So there is quite a lot of unimaginable suffering that is happening in DRC. But at the same time, there is unshakable faith. There are men and women who are standing strong for their faith. How possible is it that when suffering is seen and you can literally sense it up close, then you remain very strong in your faith, and even some converts are coming to the faith?
Yeah, the point is just simple. When you are faced with such, situation, the whole thing is, what is awaiting you ahead is either death or life. And so when you don't have any other option, the whole thing is, let me suffer, and if it means death, I would rather give my life to the Lord. I die in the Lord. And so that makes people to, come to a point where they're like, well, if I die, let me die, but I'm not going to give up my Lord. I know this is the way. I will have died in my body, but my spirit will continue living. Yeah.
Bishop, sometimes when you talk about persecution, it sounds so far because it's not with us. We are in a safe space. You will say we have a freedom of expression, freedom of worship, freedom of gathering, and all these kind of things. Yet brothers and sisters are suffering in countries like Congo, in Syria, in Sudan. We've seen suffering of Christians as well. Why is it that persecution sometimes sounds so far, yet the Bible speaks about it? When something is not like within your doorstep, you would think it is too far away. But it might be just a few meters away from you. I've worked in Congo, and this is one of the things that I've seen. I used to hear that there is suffering. I used to hear there are rebels attacking and things happening. But I had not, encountered any, apart from what I would see, like you wake up in the morning and you hear so many have been captured and killed, especially the expatriates, the people who have come in to preach or things like that. And so I was in this hotel room. And, I'm preparing to go down to meet my host. We go for dinner.
And then the next thing I'm hearing are bomb blasts. And I'm like, what is happening around me? And then he calls me and he says, don't come down. So if you have anything around where you are, just eat that one. Until tomorrow. Right now, the government soldiers are trying to, the rebels have come in and they are trying to like fight them out. And I was like, very close to myself because I had not come close to such a situation. So as I continued to hear all this, I called back and said, am I really safe here? And you see, I'm on a storied building in a room and I don't know what they're going to do downstairs. And so those are some of the, it's like it's far, but it's
Yet
real
so
close
near.
to you. Yes.
Yeah.
So anything can just happen. And the next episode also that I had an experience with was when we were, we had bought some land within the city and we were building a church. So we started, setting up that church. And 2 months later, we had gotten to the lintel level. So that is where our money is ended. And so we had to come and look for some money, raise some money from our churches again. And then when I went back, guess what? The rebels had taken over that building.
Wow.
They came up with, covers and put on top of those, where the walls were. And they were just staying in there. So I went to visit and many people are telling me, don't go there. They are rebels. So I said, rebels, who gave them the permission? That's our land. So, but of course I did go because I just felt, the Lord just leading me to do that. So when I got there, and, one of them, actually the head came out and said, oh, you are the bishop. Oh, we are sorry, we've taken over this place and it's a good, safe place for us to stay.
Wow.
So if you don't mind, just leave us for a bit. And when we are done with our job, we will quit this place and leave it for you.
Have they left the place?
No, they are still there.
They are still there?
Yeah.
Wow. So what are these people like M23 are fighting for? Is it just land, minerals, or its power?
For me, it is many things. Number one is political power. And number two, that political power is hinged on the minerals, the rich minerals in that eastern region. And number three, they are being pushed by interested people in minerals. Yes.
Okay. So in situations such as those, why then is most of the times, even when you look at what is happening now in Middle East between Israel and Palestine, if you look at what is happening in Syria, you've talked about having a church in Pakistan. If you look at issues that always arise from conflict and wars such as this, why is it that most of the times Christians come out as the victims?
Yeah, because number one, this is just my own thoughts. They look at how connected the Christians are. And they know when they touch you, then it will be easy for the other people to learn that something is happening. And you know that, I think you are aware that the rebels, what they want is, visibility. They want you to know that they exist and they are there and they can cause havoc. So that is what they want to show. So if they touch the Christians, knowing that these are the people that are, against whatever they are doing, then they feel, you will be able to lead to whatever they really want to accomplish. Yes.
So are there, apart from now your church that was taken over by these rebels, any other ministers under you that have been affected by this conflict?
In fact, all these churches that I've talked about, the 20 churches, they are affected in many ways. Even now with the Goma one, like I'm talking about, that one we left it there, hanging, waiting for whenever it will come up. We bought another land within the city. This was outside the city a little bit. But now in the middle of the city. This is where this building that I'm talking about, where they were hiding recently, is. It's not finished yet. But they all gathered there. And these were not only our members. Everybody that could access that building was there. We only have a very tiny toilet. It couldn't accommodate all the people that were there. And you can guess what was happening. We don't have a big compound either, because it's in the middle of the city. And we don't have water. Because at that time, when the rebels were in the mountain, they had disconnected water, electricity, and also blocked the supply of food. That is where it comes from, into the city.
Do you think that the Kenyan believer who is watching this show right now has a role to play in reaching out to the believers in DRC?
Yes, they do. The Bible tells us we need to be our brother's keepers.
We are coming back to discuss that.
Yes.
We are taking a short break. This is Crosstalk. When you listen to what Bishop William is explaining with real life experiences of what is happening in DRC Congo, what runs into your mind when it seems like the global church and the entire nations of the world are silent to the suffering of the people right there? You can be part of this conversation. Maybe today we do it differently. Share your prayer to the believers in Congo. And some of those prayers, we will share them with the bishop as a way of encouragement to the work and ministry that he's doing in the DRC Congo. You can do that through our SMS line 20316. Our WhatsApp line is 0786 316 316. You can as well go right on YouTube and comment with your prayer. I think let's pray for the people and believers and the nation of DRC. We are coming back after this short break.
We are living in a lost and broken world, constantly bombarded by messages of hate and atrocities. But with God, we can overcome. Find hope and restoration on the go through life-changing shows on the Family Media app.
And then you will lose yourself and gain the world. And Jesus said, what good is it?
Get to stream Family TV and Family Radio 316 straight from your phone. Catch up on a show you missed or create video streaming playlists by saving and watching videos from our huge variety of shows at your own convenience. Download the Family Media app, available for all Android and iOS users on the Google Play Store and Apple Store respectively. Family Media, keeping Jesus on the airwaves.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. We are having a very powerful conversation about the state of Christians in Congo. Of course, some of us call it the DRC Congo. So tonight I'm joined by Bishop William Ouma, who is a bishop and a pastor who is overseeing over 20 churches in the Congo. And this is a place that has known war since the 1990s. I think early 1990s, all through. We have had what was famously known as the African World War. And that began in Congo in the 1996. And it has moved until recently when we saw the capture of the eastern part of DRC by the rebels, the M23. And we're just looking at some of the sufferings and what we need to do practically as believers to support our sisters and brothers in the DRC Congo. And it's amazing that even amidst all these sufferings and conflict, there are people that are still giving their lives to Christ. So it's not just darkness and suffering, but there's also a ray of light and hope in the DRC. Welcome back, Bishop.
Thank you.
Amazing that even with the ranking of Open Door, putting DRC Congo at number 35 globally, that people are still giving their lives to Christ.
Yes, like I said, you know, the ultimate source of help or consolation is the Lord. And that's why I believe the gospel, preaching the gospel, or generally evangelism is the answer because, while we are still here on earth, if we made a partnership with God, then life here on earth is transition to the next life, and that gives us hope.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Then just before the break, we were talking about the practical ways now believers, me and many others that are watching this program, can be part of the suffering of their fellow believers in DRC or any other part of the world.
Yeah, there are many things that we who are freer in good, situations and at peace, if there is peace, that we can do. Number one is we can come to these people's aid. Like I gave you earlier, before we went for break, I called to find out the plans of work that was going on there, only to get that, there is a lot of fighting. And so now there is no way you can be doing the gospel in the midst of all that. But, and that's why they were gathered in the church, and they were not worshiping. They were all on the floor, just waiting upon God's protection. Now, with all these things happening, that means people are not working, banks are closed, and they still have to eat, they still have to dress, the needs are still there. So that one now makes it very difficult because they cannot access anything. Even now, like I'm talking to you at the moment, there is no bank except one bank that has been set up by the rebels who are now taking care, who are now running Goma and Bukavu. That is the only bank that is working. But it's working because they want people to deposit money in there, and whatever they had, and then they withdraw. And so that is it. But all the other banks are not working at the moment.
Wow.
And so now other people, like I tried, we tried to raise some funds. We cannot go there and stop war, but we can pray for them. But on top of prayer, as a church here in Kenya, we decided to raise some, humanitarian support. And we thought, if we raised foodstuffs, how do we get it to Congo? I've driven to Congo myself, and there are many areas, like now at the border points, you can't go in. In fact, those foodstuffs will be taken by the rebels. So that one is not practical. So at the moment, what we are trying to do, what we've done is raise money. And when we started, the only avenue was there were people there who had the M-Pesa, whatever. And so you could send money to that M-Pesa, and then they give them money in the Congolese, whatever. So they were able to do some small business, those guys, and at the same time, this one can also get some money, but the exchange rate was really bad. So you really lose a lot. But that's the only way you can, reach them out and give them something. Okay. Then out of that, they can now go buy whatever they need to buy. There are, some little foodstuffs that trickle in, like from the mountain, people bringing in. In the midst of war, somebody would say, let me take my merchandise to the market. If I die, I die, because even if I stay here, I will still die. Yeah. So that's the life there now. Wow. Yeah, so the best way that we've learned to do this is by sending cash.
Cash.
Yes.
Wow. Bishop, if you listen to what is happening in Congo, and you see sometimes the rhetorics that come from a political class here in Kenya, we take peace for granted, isn't it?
Exactly.
What will be your message to a political class? Because most of the time we become very tribal and ethnic when it comes to a political class. And we forget that the absence of peace can result into what we are seeing now in Congo.
I also have some bit of experience of what happened to Kenya
In 2007.
2007, 2008.
Yeah.
Then I was in Bungoma. And during that time, there was just a lot of stuff. Now, to cut the long story short, God gave me an avenue to be involved in the peacemaking here at Ufungamano during the Anan and whatever. I was part of the team. And we were picked from Bungoma, the two of us, me and the Archbishop, the former Archbishop Wapukala. He was the bishop of our SEK in Bungoma then. And so we came here, and I was taken with Ndingi Mwana Nzeki and the bishop of AIC and others to Eldoret, where we met, Bishop, what is his name again, of the Deliverance Church. I will remember. And so we did, we were doing some counseling, and he was sharing with us about his experience, how his own elders beat him up to get him away from that place. It was a very hard situation, and this bishop was crying like a baby. And it was very difficult. But I went through all these things. In my church in Bungoma then, I had also the tribe, I don't want to mention much, that was like the target. And so I had some of the elders from that same tribe, because it was, all mixed people. And so many of the people in the city in Bungoma were targeting them. So they started burning their shops and they were heading to their homes. So I went and picked them up in my car, hid them in my house. And in fact, that caused me another problem. Because now these youngsters, the gang that was doing the burning and of everything, wanted to kill them. So they came and attacked me. But because some of them are people that I had fed during our street feeding for the street kids, because they were hiring those ones as goons and stuff. Some of them saw me and they recognized me and they said, so it is you, Daddy. No, we are not going to kill you. We've been told to, but we are not going to do that. So they said, give us those people that you're hiding in there. So I said, I'm not going to. So at last they told me, we are going to do something that you'll remember. What they did was to burn my car. I had just bought it 5 months. They burnt it to ashes. It was my car for missions. But I was like, I'm glad they can burn the car and not the people. And then I had to take another vehicle to get these people, drove them to Nyahururu, single-handed to rescue them from the place. These are some of the things. And then when I hear people now talking about, joking about tribe or whatever, I see 2007, 2008, repeating itself. It's like we have not learned a lesson. So I look at what I experienced while on the ground and what I experienced during, the counseling, during the peace, whatever. And I'm like, did we learn a lesson really? So there is a big problem right there.
I think majority of Kenyans did learn something, but our political class seems not to learn anything.
Exactly. Those are the people I'm addressing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But also, if you look at, let's say, for instance, recently what happened with Gen Zs, the church equally was accused of being in cohort with the political class. And that, to this point, the church is struggling to come back and just rebuild that image.
I think we lost our commission. And we are doing whatever God commissioned us to do based on what we think is best for us. Like we try to draw our tribal lines into God's activities. We try to bring out our identity and also hook it to our tribal lines. And this is what is, I don't really think God wanted that. I believe the blood of Jesus that was shed on Calvary was shed for every tribe and for every race. on earth. And so once that one has clinched you, then no tribal boundaries should be speaking to us at any level. A human being is a human being, and the way the Lord looks at us is just same.
Wow.
And so for us, we have a job cut out to do. Yes.
So Bishop, somebody is watching and is asking, how can I then reach out to support what Bishop is doing to the people in Congo? How will that be made possible?
It is very possible. If you are in Kenya, and like I said, if you donated clothes and foodstuffs, we can't get them there right now. But if it is money, then we have a ministry account that where actually even now the monies that we are raising from our churches, that is where we are putting it and sending it over.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Crosstalk. This episode has been a reflective one in terms of our role as believers, going out to all nations. Bishop here is in Congo and is in many other parts of this country, as he had mentioned. He's in Tanzania, he's in Uganda, he's in South Sudan, he's in nations where the gospel is needed the most. And as Family Media, we stand here as a station 25 years down the line, proclaiming the good news. And through your partnership and support, we have been able to raise funds to support our radio programming and TV programming and reaching out to families. We talked about the 207-208 post-election violence. Family Media was on the front line, building homes through our project, Building Hope, to families that were affected in Mai Mahiu. And you remember that time, it was chaotic, and we wouldn't want to get there as a nation. So to our political class, please, if you have not learned anything, listen to the powerful testimony that has been shared by Bishop Dr. William. You can share this program to as many as possible to watch among your groups, among your church communities, and I think Bishop is still available, that he can be available to share all these experiences that he's gaining as he shares the gospel. Tomorrow morning, that's Friday, 7 in the morning, we have a special Crosstalk edition. For the very first time, we have the CS of National Treasury and Economic Planning, FCPA Honorable John Buddy. He will be coming here to share with us the outlook of our economy as a nation. We have a series of 4 episodes focusing on the budget process. We'll be looking at the debt crisis as a nation, the assets and public-private partnerships. So this is a conversation you don't want to miss. He has with him a team of directors from the National Treasury, including members of the public. So join me tomorrow at 7 in the morning on Family TV, on our YouTube channel and Family Radio as we bring you this conversation. A repeat of it will be on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. See you then.